Okay, well, we do actually need to look at a little bit more of this and just add on those extra features I was talking about, because there's a few key concepts in those. So before we get on, just one thing to point out that you may not have picked up on or been aware of, and that's this little command down here. Now, we've talked about it already, locations.append brackets I, and remembering what it does. It started with a list, locations, which is an empty list shown by the square brackets up there, and each time we found a particular letter in our word at a particular location, we appended to the locations list that new value. So our locations list just grew and grew and grew. That's quite interesting, because the actual list locations means it can be changed, because each time we're just appending a new value to it. We're not having to create a new list and add another value to it like we do with strings, or if we change an integer or a float where we've got to create a new instance of that variable. I know it happens behind the scenes, but we've shown that that's how it works. With lists, that's not the case at all. With a list, having got a list, we can quite easily just change that list. We can actually change a particular thing within the list, we can append to the list, delete the list, and so on. And we don't create a new list each time we do that. Basically, it'd be too much work. So just bear that in mind. It's something that we kind of skipped over, but it is quite important. So how can we improve our program? Well, the one thing we certainly haven't done is any input validation, because no matter what the user types in here, it'll be put into a letter. So let's just have a look at why that's no good. So here we are, please enter a letter. I'll hit return. Well, that took the letter. Let me put A in, and I've got 6 lives. I put A in again. I've now got 5 lives. Well, it should have told me that I'd already used A. I can put multiple letters in, and obviously it can't find that at a single location, so it's allowed me to put multiple letters in. That doesn't make any sense. And it was television. If I put a capital T in, it can't find a capital T. Well, you know, it should be reasonable and convert everything to lowercase. So there's quite a few things to improve on in our function and our program. So let's go back and have a look at it here. So here's our bit at the moment in our code where we get the user to type something in. And we want to put the code in here, but certainly it's going to get quite cluttered. So yet again, we need another function. So I'm going to create a function called getUserInput. And I don't think it needs anything at the moment, because this is not part of our code design. We just kind of said this, but let's just assume it doesn't need anything at the moment. So this is going to be a loop, and we already had a look at loops where we've got user input. We know they need to build some kind of while loop, and we know probably the easiest way to do this is a while true loop, and then we just break out when we've got the valid input that we want. So first thing we need to do in the loop is get the user to actually type in what they want. So I'm actually going to nick the code from here. And I've assigned it to letter. Well, I don't know that it's an individual letter, so that's probably not a good word to use. I'm just going to say it's a user's choice. Please enter a letter. Okay, so that'll be prompted at the start. Let's have a think what we could do first of all. Well, probably one of the simplest things to do is just to see how long the user input is. So we can say if len user's choice does not equal 1, so what do we want to do if it's not equal to 1? Well, we need to tell them that they've entered something too long. Print please enter a single character. And then we want to go back to the top of our loop and continue round, so it'll get the user input again. So there's a simple test. If we pass this test, well, for the moment, let's just test this one thing. we will now return user's choice. Okay. So back up in here in our main function, the letter that we get now doesn't come directly from the input, but it comes from calling this function get user input. Okay, so let's test this one and see if this works. Okay, so please enter letter. I'm going to put 2 letters in now, GG. Please enter a single character. Please enter a letter. So 7. Please enter a letter T. And great, it worked. So, Control C out of that. I'm going to run it all the way to the end. So our first bit has worked. It's testing for a single letter before it does that. Now notice again, I didn't get a space there at the end. So really, I need to make sure before I continue, once I've printed one of these warnings, that maybe I put in a \n. So it will give me another character line. It will give me some spacing between them. So please enter letter GG. Yeah, please enter a single character, and then it goes back into the loop again. So it's giving me that extra space in there. That's what I wanted. Okay, so that one's just checked that it's a single character. What about whether the user has entered something that's a valid character in the range A to Z? So we can do that as well. So if the user's choice and what we can do here is, remembering that we can actually use the mathematical symbols greater than or less than on characters, and it will tell me their position in the alphabet. So if the user's choice is less than an A, so it's below an A in the ASCII table, or user's choice is bigger than a Z, so it's outside of a Z, so it's outside of the range of kind of permissible characters that we want them to do. I can now say please please enter a letter in the range A to Z, and again a /n because I want a new line. And again, what I wanted to do at this point, if we get into there, I need it to continue, so that then will return back up to the top of the while loop and repeat again. So let's test if that one's working. So just check how single letter's working still. Yeah, please enter a single character. So outside of an A is obviously some numbers or punctuation. Okay, so I've got user's choice is not defined. I've got user and user's choice. So I've been inconsistent there. My variable is called user choice, not user's choice. So enter a letter 5. Please enter, please a letter in the range A to Z. Okay, I'll get my letters correct there, but clearly it's worked outside of that range, so I'd have to check the ASCII table to see what was just before an A and what was just after a Z. I'll put some punctuation in just to see if that works. I do a return character, so a return character with 0 length, so it warned me about it being a single character. And what about capital A? No, capital A. Now that would be quite nice if it converted that to lower for me automatically. Well, that's quite easy to do, because what I can do is the user's choice here that we read in can be converted to lower. So here's our input function. This returns whatever the user types in. I can call the lower method on that, and whatever is typed in, if it's a character that's an uppercase character, it will convert that to lower for me automatically. So let's just try that. So I'm going to put in a capital T this time Yeah, converted it to a lowercase t, so that worked. Excellent, so we're kind of almost there. We've at least now got the fact that it's only one character long. It could be an upper character that gets converted to lower, and it's in the range A to Z. The next thing to think about is in a game of real Hangman, you would have a list somewhere of all the letters that you had previously chosen, and if you chose one out of your list that you'd already used, you'd be kind of warned again. So we need to think about that. Now at this point we really need to go back to our code design and think about how this fits in with the bigger picture, because it's more than just this user input function. Clearly the user input function now, if we're going to test it in here, is going to need to know what letters have been previously used. So go back and think about the code design, go back and think about how we would incorporate this into our program, where we would build our list and where we would test our list. And having done that, then we'll come back and we'll look at the code a bit more. Okay, so having done that now, what have we discovered? Well, we've discovered that really our code for our given game needs to keep a record right from the very start of what letters we have actually used as part of our program. And obviously that starts off as an empty list. So that's our letters used list there. And each time the user types in some letters and our getUser function gets those letters, what we need to do is we need to record that letter onto our list. So we need to take our letters used and append to it our actual letter that's just come in. Okay, now I've just made that mistake. I don't actually need to reassign it because, like we said, if it's a list we can actually change it on the fly. So letters used.append letter actually adds our new letter to the letters used list. So there's our append function. It's adding whatever letter actually gets chosen to our letters used list. And when we call the letter function, we need to know that, let that function know what letters have already been used. So we need to pass in letters used. It starts as a null string, an empty list, so we're passing an empty list initially, and then we'll, after having accepted it as a new letter, we'll add that to the list. So in our getUserInput function here, what else do we need to do? We need to say if the user's choice is in, and obviously our function here, getUserInput, like we just set up there, needs to know the letters used, so it's going to pass it into the variable letters used. So if the user's choice is in letters used, then we can just print the message you have had that already. And continue again. Really with our \n. Just remains to think then really up here, when we're telling people how many lives they have and we're getting the letter, we should probably print what the letters used are. So we can actually keep a record that people can see before they're prompted to get the next information. So let's run that now, see if that works. Okay, letters used is not defined. I've called it letters used. It's letter used. Should make letters used up there then. Okay, so letters used so far not. Let's try an A. Letter used. Again, I've been inconsistent here. So it might give you the choice in letter used. So I passed it in as letters used. But down here I've called it letter used. Let's run that again. So try again. So we're putting in an A. I have 7 lives, letters used so far is A. If I try an A again, I've already had that letter and it's not decrementing my lives. So I'll put a B. Current guess is 6, and now A and B are in my list. So there you go. I think I've implemented all of the bits like this. Just see how it works one. So yeah, T, he put T in the right place and told me it was in my list. So that seems to have worked. So there's our basic Python code really to play Hangman with some extra bits and doing the user validation. Clearly the bit that we haven't done yet is randomly choose a word. At the moment we've hard-coded televisions in there. We need to look at how we would randomly be able to choose that word, probably reading it from a file which we've pre-populated with a list of words that are suitable for us to choose from. But more of that in the next session. Thanks very much. Bye.